The Cubs need to get themselves right. That's for sure, Ryan. And, the bullpen is currently the most glaring spot, I think. I think we all expected the offense to be a roller coaster ride this season. And we had hopes that if everything hit right, then the offense would carry them into the postseason. But we knew that the strength of the team would be pitching. Well, the starting pitching has been pretty good. What we didn't expect necessarily, everybody, at least I didn't, was that the bullpen would be, as Cody puts it, this mediocre or bad. Like it's been a rough stretch for the bullpen. So if you're trying to fix the bullpen, what's the first thing you're trying to fix? Is it trying to find the guys leading up to the closer, or is it trying to find a true closer? Which one do you think is more important in trying to fix the bullpen here?
I don't think they have a closer on the roster. I don't think they have a closer. So in that sense, they won't find a closer because there's not going to be, there's no one on the team that stands out as like I talked about yesterday, that set it and forget it. You trust this guy to lock down the ninth every single game. If there's a save situation, you put him in the ninth and you trust him. Like, they don't really have that. I know there's guys there that Ross trusts in certain situations, and most of the guys in the bullpen have potential to be good, but they also have potential to be bad. And that's when I talk about the volatility of bullpens. That's what it is, right? Like, there's no one on the roster, and I don't think there's really anyone that they could bring in right now that's like gonna emerge as that ninth inning, trust him until he loses trust kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So just in that sense, like, you have to, I think the main thing is figuring out what these guys' roles are. I think David Ross is still trying to do that, and you can see by the bullpen usage and when some of these guys are coming in. I think if he's figured out Mark Leiter Jr. isn't the innings per se, but he's the pockets. If you have a couple of lefties coming up, especially when you know Yordan Alvarez, like yesterday, especially when you know Yordan Alvarez is going to be hitting third, and if any of those first two batters, even though they're righties, even if they get on, like, you're going to get Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker. So was the pocket that Mark Leiter Jr. So he's not. He doesn't use Mark Leiter Jr. as like an eighth inning guy, put him in there and go for it. Like, you got some pretty dangerous lefties coming up. You know, Mark Leiter Jr. succeeds against lefties. That's when he's going to use him, and he's figured that out. A lot of these guys, I think he's still trying to figure out what's the best situation to use them, what's the best pocket to use them, and some of these guys won't. Like, I don't know that they'll have a. They're not going to really have like a setup man, a guy that goes in for the hold every sixth or seventh inning, right? Like, they're not going to have, I don't think, like traditional set bullpen roles, but you have to, David Ross has to like kind of have that optimal bullpen structure where he knows where he trusts guys, what pockets he trusts them in. And that's just because that's how the bullpen has been made up. And maybe that's, a criticism of what Jed Hoyer put together. Right. But yeah, I don't think they're going to find a closer. So to fix the bullpen, it seems really simple, but like, David Ross has to figure out which guys fit in the best situations and how he can deploy them. And it's still might not be enough, because you know what, bullpens are a roller coaster in themselves, especially when it's a bullpen that's kind of slapped together like the Cubs are. When you talk about fixing the bullpen, like, it's going to be tough, because that's the roster that they have isn't. I don't know if they can put together like a top 7 bullpen in the major leagues, right? It's going to be, you're going to have nights like this with this kind of bullpen, because you don't have very many, like, I trust this guy wholeheartedly to go out and get the job done. You don't really have that, because a lot of these guys aren't that proven as relievers.
I agree with what Ryan's saying in the chat. Doug says, I mean, how does a GM come up with the idea that you go north without a lefty in the pen, and or that a major league pen only needs at one most lefty? Come on. And Christian says, Jed in the front office got cocky after developing and flipping Efros. Here's to piggyback off of what Ryan is saying. I looked at the offseason moves and I saw Boxberger, Fulmer, Merriweather. Now, those didn't super excite me, but the idea behind them was they look like solid enough possibilities based on what the Cubs have been able to do with some of those guys in the past. Veteran arms, right? So it's the David Robertsons that they've been able to flip. Chris Martin, like, You can go back and see sort of a track record where they got these guys and flipped them. But the idea was mix those guys with the young arms coming up. Now, not necessarily having the closer set, like we said, and not necessarily having stud free agent guys, but kind of more mid-level free agent arms that seemed like they might be dependable. I don't disagree with the lefty thing, but Boxberger, Fulmer, and Merriweather, to some degree, each has been fairly disappointing compared to some of the other free agents, veteran free agents that they've had in the last couple of years they've been able to turn. Now, for one, we're worried about a bullpen. Maybe the Cubs have been a little bit fortunate the last couple of years in the way they've been able to turn that around and flip guys. Remember, they've been unloading relief pitchers left and right. So every time they get a guy that's been somewhat good, they're jettisoning him out trying to get prospects for him in the offseason or at the trade deadline. So that's one problem. It's not like they haven't had good relievers. They've had some guys that have been successful. They've just decided to ship them out and try to stock and reload. Well, maybe this is the year where stocking and reloading doesn't work if you didn't pick the right free agent guy. So that could be problem number one. Brendan tweeted out some information about strikeouts per 9 innings, walks per 9 innings, and it shows the guys aren't outrageously bad, except for that Keegan Thompson is the worst of that list with 6.8 strikeouts per 9 innings to 5.9, I believe, walks per inning. That's the second thing that has been surprising is that Keegan has struggled. So I don't know if moving ALLCITY to closer, while I said that last night, is the right move. I just think right now, ALLCITY is the guy you have to use whenever you think the game is on the line, whenever that is. I don't know if that necessarily means closer. It might break your heart an inning later. Somebody might break your heart an inning later, but I think whenever David Ross believes the game is on the line, ALLCITY currently is the guy to use. As for the bullpen, it's always a crapshoot. We thought the Cubs had figured out some super plan, right, Cody? That's what you always say, like they figured it out. Or they sort of figured it out and they got maybe fortunate. Is that the way we're starting to lean this season? Or is it still, can we still turn it around for them?
I think that they can turn it around. It's just, they're going to need some reinforcements. Now, the big thing that concerns me about the reinforcements is none of those guys are in David Ross's circle of trust. I mean, I've been screaming for Jeremiah Estrada to just get an opportunity in a tie game, a lead, anything. I mean, I think the closest I've gotten is the Cubs being down 2 runs in the 6th or 7th inning. So everyone in, like, Gary, I keep seeing in the chat, keeps saying Cam Sanders. You think Cam Sanders is going to come up and the Cubs are automatically going to put him in the 8th or 9th inning?
Yeah.
I doubt it. As much as I would like
pressure,
to
a lot of
see
pressure.
It or whatever. Like, and as much as I would like to see him in a high leverage spot, not necessarily the 8th or the 9th inning to close, like that's just how things have been going with the guys that they've brought up from Iowa.